EOD team used robots for the bomb. Then the old veteran said, "Let me handle this." "Stay back, old man. This isn't a job for someone with shaky hands," Lieutenant Sarah Chen shouted as she maneuvered the $2 million bomb disposal robot toward the suspicious package. The 74-year-old civilian had been quietly observing from behind the police tape, but now he was asking to examine the device personally. "We have state-of-the-art equipment for this," she insisted, pointing to her high-tech EOD suit and robotic systems. But when the robot's delicate sensors failed to identify the homemade trigger mechanism and the timer showed just 8 minutes remaining, that same old man with shaky hands would prove that sometimes the most dangerous job requires the human touch, especially when those hands belong to someone who had defused over 200 bombs in Vietnam. The morning started like any other Tuesday in downtown Seattle until a construction worker discovered the package. Hidden beneath a busy pedestrian overpass, the device looked sophisticated enough to level half a city block. Within minutes, the area was evacuated, streets were blocked, and the Seattle Police Department's bomb squad was racing to the scene with sirens screaming through the urban canyon. Lieutenant Sarah Chen arrived with her explosive ordnance disposal team in the department's specialized response vehicle, a mobile command center packed with millions of dollars worth of detection equipment, robotic systems, and protective gear. At 31, Chen was considered one of the most skilled bomb technicians on the West Coast. With advanced training from the FBI's Hazardous Devices School and experience with some of the most complex devices terrorists had devised. Her team consisted of 6 specialists, all young, all highly trained, and all equipped with technology that would have seemed like science fiction just a generation earlier. Staff Sergeant Mike Rodriguez operated their primary robot, a tracked vehicle equipped with cameras, sensors, and mechanical arms, capable of manipulating objects with surgical precision. The machine could X-ray suspicious packages, analyze chemical signatures, and even detonate devices remotely if necessary. The device they discovered was unlike anything in their training manuals. Approximately the size of a briefcase, it contained what appeared to be multiple triggering mechanisms, timer displays, and enough explosive material to cause massive casualties. The sophistication of the construction suggested either foreign terrorist involvement or a domestic bomb maker with military-level expertise. "We're looking at a complex device with multiple fail-safes," Chen reported to the incident commander. "It's going to take time to analyze all the components before we can determine the safest approach." The robot's cameras revealed intricate wiring, multiple circuit boards, and what appeared to be anti-tampering devices designed to detonate the bomb if anyone attempted to disarm it incorrectly. That's when Harold "Hal" Morrison approached the outer perimeter. At 74, he moved with the careful steps of someone whose body had endured more than its share of physical stress, but his eyes held the alert intelligence of someone who missed nothing. He wore simple civilian clothes, dark pants, a button-down shirt, and a windbreaker that had seen better years. Most notably, he carried a small leather satchel that looked like it had survived several wars. The police officer manning the perimeter initially tried to redirect Morrison away from the scene. "Sir, this is a restricted area. There's a bomb threat in progress." Morrison showed the officer a federal identification card that caused him to step aside immediately and radio his supervisor. Within minutes, Morrison was escorted to the command post, where Lieutenant Chen was coordinating the disposal operation. "Lieutenant Chen," the watch commander announced, "this is Harold Morrison. He's authorized to observe the operation." Chen looked up from her monitors with obvious irritation. The last thing she needed during a complex bomb disposal was a civilian observer, regardless of his credentials. "Sir, I appreciate whatever expertise you might have, but we're dealing with a sophisticated explosive device. This isn't the time for consultation." Morrison approached the monitors showing the robot's camera feeds of the device. He studied the images with an intensity that surprised Chen, his eyes moving systematically over every visible component. "Lieutenant, how long have you been working on this?" Chen checked her chronometer. 47 minutes. We're still in the analysis phase, trying to identify all the triggering mechanisms before we attempt any intervention." "What's your assessment so far?" Morrison asked, still studying the monitors. Chen pointed to various components visible on the screens. Multiple redundant triggers, sophisticated anti-tampering devices, and what appears to be a dead man switch. "We're going to use the robot to carefully probe each circuit to determine the proper disarmament sequence." Morrison was quiet for a moment, then spoke carefully. "Lieutenant, I'm seeing at least 3 triggering mechanisms that your robot's sensors won't be able to detect." Chen turned to face him fully. "Sir, with all due respect, our equipment can analyze chemical signatures, X-ray internal components, and identify electronic circuits. What could we possibly be missing?" "Pressure plates," Morrison said simply, "hidden under the main circuit board, and a tilt switch that's not connected to the main power source, plus what looks like a mercury switch designed to activate if the device is moved more than a few degrees." Chen stared at him. "How could you possibly see details like that from these camera angles?" Morrison opened his leather satchel and pulled out a pair of glasses with unusual magnification lenses. 43 years of looking at devices that people built specifically to kill bomb disposal technicians. You develop an eye for things that aren't supposed to be there. Chen realized she was talking to someone with serious credentials. "What's your background, Mr. Morrison?" "Vietnam, 1968 to 1970. 5th Engineer Battalion, Explosive Ordnance Disposal. After the war, FBI bomb squad for 30 years. The revelation hit Chen like a physical blow. She was receiving advice from someone whose experience dwarfed her own by decades. "Sir, how many devices did you handle in Vietnam?" Morrison was studying the monitors again, making notes in a small, worn notebook. "I stopped counting after 200. Different war, different devices, but the principles haven't changed. People who build bombs to kill other people think in predictable ways." Chen looked at her robot's analysis again, trying to see what Morrison was seeing. "Our sensors aren't detecting the components you mentioned. Your sensors are looking for electronic signatures and recognizable circuit patterns," Morrison explained. "But some of the deadliest triggers are purely mechanical. A piece of metal balanced on a pivot point. A small steel ball held in place by wax that melts from body heat. Mercury in a glass tube. Your robot can't detect those because they don't emit electronic signatures." The urgency of the situation was increasing. The device's timer showed less than an hour remaining, and Chen's team was still struggling to understand all the triggering mechanisms. "Mr. Morrison, are you suggesting that our robotic approach won't work?" Morrison studied the latest camera feeds. "I'm suggesting that your robot is very good at what it was designed to do, but this device was built by someone who understood modern bomb disposal techniques and specifically designed it to defeat them." Staff Sergeant Rodriguez spoke up from his position operating the robot. "Sir, if the robot can't handle this safely, what do you recommend?" Morrison looked at the assembled team of young technicians, then at the monitors showing the complex device. Someone needs to get close enough to examine those components that the cameras can't see clearly. The suggestion caused immediate concern among the team. Lieutenant Chen shook her head. "Sir, that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. The whole point of the robot is to keep human technicians at a safe distance." Morrison nodded, understanding. "Lieutenant, your robot is excellent for devices built with standard components and conventional triggering mechanisms. But when someone builds a bomb specifically to kill bomb disposal experts, sometimes you need someone who's spent his career thinking like both the bomber and the technician." The debate was interrupted by an urgent update from the robot's sensors. "Lieutenant," Rodriguez called out, "I'm getting readings that suggest the timer mechanism just shifted into a different mode. The countdown appears to be accelerating." Chen checked the monitors and confirmed Rodriguez's assessment. What had been a slow countdown was now moving much faster. "We have less than 20 minutes, she announced grimly. If you're enjoying this incredible story of how old-school bomb disposal expertise saved the day when modern technology failed, make sure to subscribe for more amazing veteran stories like this one. Morrison set down his notebook and began removing items from his leather satchel. "Lieutenant, I understand this violates every protocol you've been taught, but that device is going to detonate in 15 minutes unless someone with the right experience intervenes." The tools he revealed were unlike anything in the modern EOD arsenal. Simple, hand-forged implements that looked like they belonged in a museum. "Those tools are ancient," Chen observed. "We have precision instruments that can—" Morrison interrupted gently. "Lieutenant, those precision instruments are designed to work with precision devices. This bomb was built in someone's garage using improvised components. Sometimes improvised problems require improvised solutions." Chen faced the most difficult decision of her career. Every training protocol screamed against allowing a 74-year-old civilian to approach an active explosive device. But Morrison's credentials were undeniable, and his analysis had already revealed critical components that her technology had missed. "Mr. Morrison, if you're wrong about this, then I'll be the only casualty," Morrison replied simply. "But if we don't try something different in the next 10 minutes, this device is going to detonate regardless." Chen made the call that would either save hundreds of lives or haunt her forever. "All personnel fall back to minimum safe distance. Mr. Morrison, you have authorization to approach the device." Morrison's transformation was remarkable. The elderly man who had seemed frail and outdated suddenly moved with purpose and confidence that spoke of decades of experience in life-and-death situations. He approached the device with tools that predated most of the watching technicians, but his hands were steady and his movements precise. Working by feel as much as sight, Morrison began examining components that the robot's cameras couldn't access. "There's the first pressure plate," he called back to the command post, "hidden exactly where I expected it. And here's the mercury switch." His running commentary provided a masterclass in bomb disposal techniques that weren't taught in any modern training program. "The primary timer is a decoy," Morrison announced as he worked. "The real timer is mechanical, hidden behind the main circuit board. It's been running this whole time, independent of the electronic display." Using tools that looked primitive compared to the team's high-tech equipment, Morrison began the delicate process of disabling each triggering mechanism in sequence. "Mr. Morrison," Chen called through the radio, "what's your assessment of time remaining?" Morrison's voice came back calm and steady. "The mechanical timer shows about 4 minutes, but I can see the main triggering mechanism now. It's actually simpler than it appeared." Working with the steady hands of someone who had performed this task hundreds of times under much worse conditions, Morrison identified and disabled the final triggering mechanism. The silence that followed was deafening. The device's electronic timer continued its countdown, but Morrison had severed the connections between the timer and the explosive charge. "Device is safe," he announced matter-of-factly. "You can approach now." The EOD team rushed forward to secure the device and document Morrison's work. What they found amazed them: a bomb that had been specifically designed to defeat modern disposal techniques, disabled using methods that predated electronic warfare by decades. Lieutenant Chen approached Morrison as he packed his vintage tools back into their worn leather case. "Sir, I need to understand what just happened. How did you know where to look for those hidden triggers?" Morrison finished cleaning his tools with the same methodical care he'd shown throughout the operation. "Lieutenant, in Vietnam, we dealt with devices built by people who had studied captured American equipment and designed their bombs specifically to kill our disposal teams." He gestured toward the now safe device. "This bomb was built by someone who understood modern EOD procedures and wanted to defeat them. The electronic components were all decoys designed to keep your robot busy, while the real triggering mechanisms remained hidden." Chen realized she had just received an education that no training program could provide. "Would you be willing to teach these techniques to our team?" Morrison looked at the assembled group of young technicians who had watched the entire operation with growing respect and understanding. "The tools change, Lieutenant, but the principles remain the same. Understanding how bombers think is more important than having the most advanced equipment." Staff Sergeant Rodriguez spoke up. "Sir, would you consider consulting with our training program? What we just learned could save lives." Morrison considered the request seriously. "The techniques I use today were developed by a lot of good people who didn't make it home from Vietnam. If sharing that knowledge can help keep your people safe, then I'm honored to help." The debriefing that followed became an impromptu seminar in advanced bomb disposal theory. Morrison explained how bomber psychology had evolved over decades, how terrorists learned from law enforcement techniques, and how disposal experts needed to think like both engineer and adversary. "Your robot and sensors are excellent tools," Morrison told the team, "but they're only as good as the person operating them. Understanding what you're looking for is more important than having sophisticated equipment to look with." Chen realized that her team's high-tech approach, while effective for most situations, had critical limitations when facing opponents who understood their methods. Morrison's intervention became a case study in EOD training programs across the country. The combination of modern technology with traditional hands-on expertise proved more effective than either approach alone. Within months, Morrison was consulting with bomb squads nationwide, teaching techniques that bridged the gap between high-tech analysis and practical field experience. The device Morrison had disarmed was eventually traced to a domestic terrorist cell that had specifically studied law enforcement disposal procedures to create bombs that would defeat standard approaches. Morrison's old-school techniques had succeeded where modern methods failed because he understood bomber psychology from an era when disposal work was purely hands-on. Lieutenant Chen became one of Morrison's most dedicated students, learning to combine her technical training with the intuitive understanding that comes from decades of experience. "He taught us to think like the bomber," she would later tell other technicians. "Technology can tell you what's there, but experience tells you what to do about it." Today, Morrison's leather satchel and vintage tools are displayed in the FBI's bomb disposal training facility, along with a description of the Seattle incident. The plaque reads, "Sometimes the most sophisticated problems require the simplest solutions. applied by someone with the experience to know the difference. Morrison continues to consult with EOD teams, understanding that his knowledge represents a bridge between the dangerous past and the technological future of bomb disposal. The young technicians who initially dismissed his ancient tools now understand that true expertise comes not from having the newest equipment, but from understanding how to apply experience and judgment when lives hang in the balance. Harold Morrison proved that in the deadly serious business of bomb disposal, there's no substitute for hands-on knowledge earned through decades of facing the worst that human ingenuity can devise.